So Alec Burks just got traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Kyle Korver deal, and most of this video is going to be me talking about him, but I'll spend a little bit of time on the 2 second-rounders. Getting those for 37-year-old Kyle Korver, who is not in the Cavaliers' future plans at all, that's a good move. The Wizards pick could end up being pretty good if the Wizards are bad in, I think it's like 2021. So that could end up being a second-rounder that's in like the low 30s, or what would be the terminology, high 30s? I don't know. It could end up being like the 32nd pick in the draft, which at that point, there's usually still some decent players available, so that could be effectively like a late first rounder more than a typical second, which usually you don't get that excited about. And then getting another second, regardless of where it is, again for Korver, that's pretty good. Now we're going to talk about Burks, and whether the Cavs actually keep Burks past this season. I don't know. They might move him at the deadline. They may just let him walk in free agency, or they may be all in on this 27 or 28-year-old shooting guard who has had some ups and downs in his career. I don't know, but I do want to talk about Alec Burks a little bit. Is there a chance that he is very underrated and has just never gotten the chance to show off what he can do outside of little segments of his career here and there? Or is he just a guy who's kind of inconsistent and is just meant to be like a 17 to 24 minute a game kind of guy? Well, I think what we got to talk about first is his inability to stay healthy, because I believe it was his third season where he put up about 15 points a game on some decent efficiency, where he was making threes, he was getting by defenders, he was getting to the free throw line effectively enough, and he was just kind of like this two guard at 6'6", who you said, oh, this guy can put up some points, you know? And he kind of gave me like a Jason Richardson kind of vibe. Maybe not as reckless from three, but the idea of like a shooting guard who, sure, his playmaking is not going to be the best, but in terms of just putting the ball in the basket through kind of any means necessary, he was going to be able to do it, right? But then in 2015 gets hurt, 2016 gets hurt, and he's been about a 15-minute-a-game guy for the Jazz ever since then. Now, even with those praises I can give him, he has had some problems throughout his career. Number one, his playmaking has never really gone to a level, I guess. His turnovers have always been a little too high, given just how much of the offense is really his, I guess. His turnover percentage and his assist percentage have almost been neck and neck for his entire career. His shooting has definitely been like at times above league average, but sometimes under league average. I would say he can beat defenders off the dribble sometimes, not all the time. Does he perhaps sometimes dribble himself into trouble? Or is he not the best guy to really run an offense? Yeah, but at the same time, he hasn't been horrible. And along the way, he's had some 20-something point games here and there to where you're like, you know, there could be something here. But now he's 27 years old, right? So you figure if it was going to happen at this point, it probably would have. But even so, I do think there is something in there that Alec Burks has never been able to really show off. As far as whether it's going to be on the Cavaliers or not, I don't know. I mean, the Cavs situation's interesting in the sense that they could end up having the worst record in the league. High draft pick, all that good stuff. So they may just want to go all in on that, and maybe Burks could play well over the next couple of weeks, and then I'm pretty sure, 60 days is when he can be moved again, and by that time, that's all of December, all of January. So the trade deadline would be a couple days after that, so you could still move him this season, and maybe he'll just be really impressive, and then that'll give the Cavs an opportunity to make a move. Would they actually want to keep him and have him be like just a guy who can actually help them be a respectable basketball team for the next few seasons? I mean, I don't know. There are some complications there. But I guess the idea could be, if you're still horrible this season, then you can just have some sort of offense while you still have a high pick. And then, going into next season, it's like, well, we drafted whoever we picked, Zion, let's just say. Then you got Zion and Alec Burks, who's 28 and can help Zion out a little bit with spacing and all that. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? Now, one thing that could potentially influence their decision, might not have an impact at all, whatever, is that George Hill and J.R. Smith's contracts are partially guaranteed next year, and if you let both of them go, which I probably would, then I believe that gets you under the salary cap, which I guess matters in some way. And perhaps Burks could help out Colin Sexton a bit this season, and then everything I just said about whoever they're going to end up drafting in this upcoming draft, assuming that they finish bottom 10, which I'm pretty sure they're going to. So there's that. As far as the offseason, I mean, if we go down the teams that are going to have cap space right now, there's a decent amount, and some of them have some decisions to make in terms of like re-signing guys, but you know, between the Nets, the Kings, the Mavs, the Hawks, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Clippers, the Suns, there are some teams that may want Burks' scoring, whether that is as a starting two guard or off the bench or whatever it may be. I do think he could have a place. I mean, you know how the Pacers signed Tyreke Evans to just help them out with offense this year? And they signed him to a 1-year deal. I could kind of picture them signing Alec Burks to a similar thing, especially because Tyreke hasn't been the best this season. It also matters on what Alec Burks is going to get on the open market. A lot of it depends on what he does throughout this season, right? But let's say he can be a solid 15-point-a-game scorer who is good from three and is getting to the line, which is something he did do like at a decent clip when he was really getting minutes for the Jazz. And some team thinks, you know, we can probably play that guy about 27, 28 minutes a game, and he can give us some offense. You know, does that creep him up to $12 or $13 million on like a 3 or 4 year deal? Yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility. And I think that's about all I got on Alec Burks. I could picture this going in like 4 different directions for him, where he reveals himself to be this high teens, low 20s scorer, and the Cavaliers want to keep him to help out their young dudes and the guy that they're going to draft. I could see him getting moved and then doing the same thing for another team. I could see him getting signed to a decently generous offer in the offseason. Or I could see him just actually not being that great, and the reason he hasn't played that much with the Jazz is because he kind of didn't deserve it. If I had to take a guess, I think it's going to end up more towards the positive for Burks, because at the end of the day, I look at it and I say, he can make threes, he can do some stuff off the dribble, and at least for a 3-year stretch, he was able to get to the free throw line. And you put those 3 things together, typically it means you're going to be a valuable offensive player. So, there you go. We'll see what happens with him.